This is the class you've all been waiting for. Why do bad things happen to good people? This topic has come up several times, and now it's the official discussing of the topic. Why do bad things happen to good people? And we'll start with what is not so pleasing to hear, but bad things happen because of some bad free will choices. Bad things happen as a reaction to some bad things, or karma. So here's a slide showing karma theory. You've probably seen this slide before. You've seen this one before? It's like the domino effect. That's another common way of describing that fellow there sitting in the chair. He pushes one piece over, it knocks another piece, and knocks another piece, and knocks another piece, and knocks another piece, and comes back, and you know what's going to happen. It's going to hit him in the head. And he may not know what was the cause, because it was way back there that caused something that hits him in the head. I showed this already, but, you know, there's a number of people here in this room that haven't seen. There's a British humor way of describing or depicting karma theory. You ready? British humor means at the end there's a shock, so get ready for a shock. Whoops. Oh. What's going on? Let's see. There we go. What? Okay, but I have to do this. I have to stop this. Go over here. Change the sound settings so it goes to the speakers. And now you should be able to hear it. Okay, so you got the picture. There's a fellow walking out his front door. Whoops. That's British humor. Aren't you glad you don't live in I say British humor because for a number of years at Rath Yatra time, the players from the Bhaktivedanta Manor, I forget what they called themselves, maybe it was Vaikuntha players or something like that, they came and performed dramas. And, you know, the dramas of Ramayana and Mahabharata and those things were great. And then one evening, because they're British, they had to do something that was funny. And the something that's funny for British people is very different than what's funny for the rest of us. So that's why I say British humor is like, okay, that's the karma theory. And within the world in which we live, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of diversity of cultures and colors and backgrounds and languages and so many differences, so much diversity. And aside from the human form of life, there's so much diversity in the species of life. We know the number, right? 8,400,000. So here's the breakdown. 900,000 Navalaksha, 900,000 aquatics, 2 million plants, trees, and grass, 1,100,000. Normally we don't see germs, but this list includes germs, insects, flies, bugs, that kinds of things. And then birds, 1 million, animals, 3 million, and human, 400,000. Lots of diversity. So why this species or that species or that's the other species? That amongst the 400,000 of human species, we find diversity. Some are very wealthy, some are very poor. Some are very strong and healthy, some are very weak and handicapped. And so sometimes thoughtful people will ponder, why is this? It seemed to be unequal or unfair, for that matter. Why all this inequality? And then step back, and there's so much suffering in this world, particularly, common question, innocent children. Why do innocent children have to suffer? Because they didn't do anything. They just got born and they have some difficult situation. They can't play harmonium like he does and play mridanga like he does, and they don't even, some of them don't have fingers or whatever. So it seems that God is partial, even from the get-go, before somebody does something wrong. They have some misfortune. Why do little children, innocent children, get killed? They didn't do anything wrong. So what's the cause? Looks like God is partial. Some get some favor, some get some disfavor. So that's the behind the question. Why do bad things happen to good people, or seemingly innocent people? And that's where the karma theory comes in. Why do bad things happen to good people? There was a book written about it, do you know? And the man who wrote the book was a Jewish rabbi. The title of the book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And his name sounds a little bit like Hare Krishna. His name is Hare Krishna. Rabbi Hare Krishna. And one of it's a kind of thick book, and I didn't read it, but I was told one of the things it says is sometimes God makes a mistake. So sometimes bad things happen to good people. I mean, it's written by a rabbi, so the chosen people, you know who the chosen people are, they have a history of having difficulty. So it's just some mistake on God's part. Because otherwise, how can God be all-powerful and all-knowing and all-loving, and then bad things happen to good people? So what's the factor that determines why bad things happen? Here's a verse from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8. Bhuta bhavod bhava karo visarga karma sangita. Visarga. What does visarga mean? Any of our two young boys here know what Sarga and Visarga mean? Creation and subcreation. What Vishnu does is Sarga, and what Brahma does is Visarga. Subcreation, Visarga. So there's Visarga karma sangita. Action pertaining to the development of material bodies, of living entities, is called karma, or fruitive activities. So this definition is, it's not just what you do, but it's action that develops bodies, action that generates a reaction. So action, reaction, action, reaction. So that's determining, the reactions come because of actions. So here's a classic kind of brutal ISKCON illustration of those that cause suffering to animals have that suffering come back to them, with blood painted here and there on the painting. Or the biblical saying is, reap what you sow. Same idea. This is what I learned in my introduction to Krishna consciousness, because my background was a science background. Newton's third law of motion, everyone knows. But this is Sir Isaac Newton from the website. Don't know what he actually looked like, but that's what they say on Mr. Google. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if people cause pain and suffering for others, that pain and suffering will come back. Same, goodness, it'll come back. Equal action, reaction. So here's another little cartoon, and I hope the sound works. And this is, it's a cartoonist. It's not exactly how karma works, but it's a cartoonist depicting it. Okay. That's a karma cartoon. Now back to our teachings. We know that there's different types of karma, or even more specifically, different stages of karma. Karma is sometimes compared to the fruits of a tree. As we see, some fruits are ripe and they've fallen. Some are still becoming ripe on the tree. Some are not yet fructified. Here's some of the Sanskrit terminology. There's aprarabdha and prarabdha, unmanifested and manifested. Bija means in the seed form, and kuta means sinful proclivity, or the tendency, the directional tendency. That's the fruits of past karma, is to do more karma. And there's a way of eliminating all karma, which is what we really want. But just before eliminating karma, here's a karma timeline. It's hard to trace out what's the cause of something that's happening today, because it doesn't happen in the next moment. Some of you a little old enough, you probably remember there was a Beatles song called Instant Karma. Some of you remember? Nobody remembers. It was a John Lennon song, Instant Karma. So they were learning, the Beatles were learning about Vedic stuff, and that was a concept, and so they wrote a song about it. But generally speaking, karma isn't instant. It's there's a timeline. So all these circles are, at the beginning of the circle is where something starts, and the end of the circle is when it fructifies. So it can be in one lifetime, it can span over the same lifetime or the next lifetime, or multiple lifetimes, and it's hard to say what's the cause of a specific behavior that's caused a specific result. But the cause and effect principle holds, even if we don't know what the cause is. And the effect can be various, as depicted here, various species of life. This is important to understand from the karma concept. Lower life forms don't accrue karma. Rather, they're extinguishing or using up or burning up past karma up to a point where that karma is now reduced, and therefore the covering of the soul is reduced, and therefore the next life form in the evolutionary cycle, the next life form, up to the human form. And the human form is where karma begins, where reactions to behaviors or choices begin. And depending upon the upward direction of those choices or the downward direction of those choices, one will take the next life form. Urdvam gacchanti sattvasta, madhye tishtanti rajasa, aho gacchanti tamasa. So depending upon the choices of karma, and they're certainly connected to guna, that's going to determine our next situation. And if we make bad choices, then we get a bad result. This is the BBT illustration indicating some of the choices on the left side and some of the consequences on the right side. Say, bottom left one, if somebody likes sleeping as much as possible, their body's more suited for that than a human form of life. Nature will award a body that can sleep a lot, etc. There's some nice understanding. Some of you know the work of Professor Ian Stevenson. He's now deceased, but his life was, his professional life was dedicated to studying remembrances of past lives. And the image that's on the left is a classic one that happened kind of early in his career. I forget the girl's name, the little girl. Shanta. Okay. Shanta. That's the little girl there. So when she was just a little girl, she told mom and dad that I'm not Shanta, I'm so-and-so. Who's the so-and-so? whoever the so-and-so, she knew the name of who she was in her previous life. You know, little kids say all kinds of things. So mom and dad didn't pay too much attention. But she kept saying it, and then details and details and details. And more details and more details and more details. So finally, they decided, let's go check this out. Now, she's from a village. She's a little girl. She'd never been outside the village, but she remembered where she previously lived. And where she previously lived was quite a distance away. And so they went to visit the place where she said she lived. And, what her name was. And sure enough, the people that lived there knew who that lady was that used to live there. And so then they brought Ian Stevenson or his team, and they went on a train. The girl knew exactly how to get from the train to the house. But when she got to the house, she was confused because the previous configuration was the door was in the front, but after she departed, they moved the door from the front to the side. So once they got inside the house, she knew where everything was. She went to a box where she used to keep her saris. She went through the box and recognized the sari that she used to wear. She put on the sari, wouldn't want to wear anything else but that one sari. There's other things, there's some place where she and her husband kept some money in safekeeping where nobody knew. She knew exactly where it was. She went to the place and found the money, and they were like, this is not an accident, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there's many, many 3,500 cases. His last book was where reincarnation and biology intersect, without the details. Persons born with a certain bodily mark or defect or something, remembering their previous life that was connected with that bodily defect, checking the medical records to see that defect was there from birth, then going to where they said they used to live and what their name was and what they did, and verifying is it true, and then in so many cases. So the book has pictures of people with this and that and the other thing, half a leg, born, et cetera, et cetera. Many, too many, that it's just coincidence. So it points to the very simple fact that souls continue from this body to the next body. And it may be a human body and it may not. But those souls that are in human bodies remember their previous life. He studied it extensively, and he's now departed. Someone else is carrying on his work. Compelling. Another example, this as you sow, you shall reap, is there's a storage bin for grain, and when you put storage grain in storage, the ones that come out the bottom are the ones you put in first. But you never know because things jostle around a little bit. So you may not know what's that seed that comes down that chute. What was the activity that produced that seed that came down the chute? And if this is the case, then it leads to more questions. One of those questions is, it looks like everything is predestined, and so we really don't have any choices. Looks like everything's karmically determined, so free will goes out the window. But it's not like that. What it is what's coming your way has a cause, and how you respond to what's coming your way, that's where your free will is operating. Going forward in time, you can change the past karma. It can be nullified by Vedic processes, particularly by bhakti. But here's a classic example. Two men were born in the same family. They're brothers. Destiny by God is their brothers. And one of them became very wealthy, and the other of them became a thief. So free will is there. No. Being born in the same family doesn't mean that they have the same karma, but there is free will that's at play. Okay. A little pause. So we spoke about the stages of unfolding of karma, and now comes, the good and the bad karma, two kinds. Good karma and bad karma. So some people, when they hear there's the good karma and the bad karma, they have this idea to get rid of the bad karma, you just do a bunch of good karma. And it doesn't get rid of the bad karma. It changes, it adjusts the pan scale, so there's more good karma on this side than the bad karma on that side. But the bad karma has to go somewhere. Can you cancel them out? No. Is that another is good karma really good? Because good karma means there's another birth. Supposing in this lifetime, somebody, they never do any bad karma, all they do is good karma. Then what happens? You have to take birth to take the good karma. So then with birth comes the other problems: birth, death, disease, and old age. So from today on, now that I know the karma principle, I'm just going to do good karma. So this is a little cartoon that says you move from a small cage to a big cage. You have more freedom by good karma, but you're still bound by the principle of karma. Same thing over here. I demand my freedom now. Okay, here's a bigger cage. Okay, so bad karma can't be canceled by good karma. So what do? You can't balance it all out. Good karma, bad karma don't cancel each other. I'm not going to tell this story because I narrated it once already. The Chinese farmer story. Anybody here not know the Chinese farmer story? You all know the Chinese farmer story. You don't know. Should I narrate it? Okay. For those of you that know, pretend that you don't know. It begins like this. Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer. And the Chinese farmer was visited by the local village people that said, "Oh, you're so fortunate you have a horse. And because you have a horse, you can plow your fields much more easily than those of us that don't have a horse." What's up? The boys? The boys are too friendly with each other. It's a good story. The Chinese farmer story, it's a good story. Okay, so you're very fortunate you have a horse. And because you have a horse, you can plow your fields more easily than the rest of us that don't have a horse. And the Chinese farmer said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" Some time passed, the horse ran away. And the villagers came to the Chinese farmer and said, "Oh, what misfortune. Your horse ran away. And now you have to plow your fields like the rest of us have to plow our fields." And his reply was, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" Some time passed. The horse came back. And not only the horse came back, but several other wild horses came back with his horse. And the villagers went to the farmer and said, "Oh, what good fortune. Now you have many horses, and now it'll be really easy for you to plow your fields." And the farmer said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" Some time passed. His son was trying to train the wild horses to plow the fields. He fell off the horse and broke his leg. The villagers came to the farmer and said, "Oh, what ill fortune. Your son broke his leg. He fell off the horse." And the farmer said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" Some time passed. The Chinese government went to war. And they passed a conscription act. All able-bodied men between this age, that age, have to join the army. So when the government people came by, they took all the young boys except the one that had the broken leg. And then the villagers came to the farmer and said, "Oh, what good fortune! Your son had broken legs. You didn't have to go to war and join the army." And the farmer said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" And that's the end of the story. So we were discussing this yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. Where there's Shrishti and Drishti. Shrishti means it has to do with creation or the way things are, the reality of the situation we find ourselves in. And Drishti has to do with how you perceive the reality of the situation that is happening at the moment. And a lot of misfortune has to do with how you see what's happening. And then the kaleidoscope moves and it keeps changing and it keeps changing. Especially these days, I'm sure you've noticed, but uncertainty is overflowing. We never know. I mean, you can make a plan, you have to make a plan, but you never know. So I'm just gotten really, not numb, but just, accustomed to, you never know. So, like, for example, we're planning to have a yatra in Vrindavan at Kartik. But is it going to happen? Who knows? It's not like good fortune, ill fortune, who can say? But we never know. We never know. We started coming here. We can't follow the same route that we've come in the past. And GPS told us to go, towards the Holland Tunnel. And there was backed up traffic to the max. Anyway, we got here. But you never know. Life is filled with uncertainties. So misfortune may be a good fortune, you never know. But time passes, and whatever it is, it's going to change because that's the nature of how the material energy works. We often look at search situations, how does it satisfy my senses? We don't necessarily look at the bigger picture of how good karma, bad karma are both bad because they're both binding. You do good things, then you're bound to another life form, and then another birth, another disease, another old age, and another death, as long as the karma cycle continues. So what to do? How do you break the karma cycle? How do you break the karma cycle? How do you do that which doesn't produce reaction? Or there's a nice Sanskrit word for that, karma, where there's no reaction. The principle taught in Bhagavad Gita, acknowledge that everything belongs to God. That's a good starting point, because it's reality. That's reality. And when we act with that understanding, this is God's property, we act according to God's indications, how to use what's His in service to Him. It's a good servant. It's His property. We ask Him how to use this in His service, and He tells us, and we do that. And the intention is for His pleasure. When we do that, He takes personal responsibility, and then our life is the real purpose of life, or the real objective of life. What's that? Serve and please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that position, the worldly sense of good and bad, like this pleases my senses or it doesn't, is no longer the way that you look at things. That's the karma perspective or the bhakti perspective. Here's some benefits. There's no reactions, and all the previous reactions are burnt to ashes. Here's some example. Really easy one. Arjuna and Duryodhana. Duryodhana was bad. And he didn't, and that's all he saw. What's in my self-interest? I want the kingdom. Not what does Krishna want and how to please Krishna. It's his own gratification. And Arjuna was not simply interested in victory. He wanted to do whatever he did for Krishna. This is Krishna's teaching. We all know, let's say the verse. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva. You know the verse, right? Can you say it without looking? How about your friend over there? Yes, no, or maybe?
Yes.
Now comes the real test. What's the meaning? You can read the meaning. Do you know the meaning? Can you summarize the meaning without the word for word exactly? Sarvadharmam prityaja means what? What? Okay, that's nice. Mam ekam sharanam. Sharanam means surrender. Aham. Mam ekam sharanam. Ekam means one or alone. It's better to be alone. And don't worry. Ma shuchaha. Don't worry. Ma shuchaha. If you think by not doing the things that everybody's expecting of me to do, and instead I'm surrendering to Krishna, ma suchaha, don't worry. No reaction, no papa, no sin. Krishna will deliver us from any kind of sin for simply serving him. All right, that sounds good. We know that verse from Bhagavad Gita. And now, what about the effect of akarma? Is it possible to lose the effect of akarma? Well, here's a verse in chapter 2. We can say the verse together. Nehaba kramana shosti pratyavayo navidyate svalpam apyasya dharmasya prayate mahatabayat. Even swa alpa, even a little devotional service saves one from the most dangerous type of fear. Maha, bhaya. Bhaya means fear, and maha means great. So what's the greatest fear? What's the greatest fear? Death? More. Go a little further. Because great people also die, but bad people, what happens? Yamaraj. And the Yamadutas. That's the Mahabhaya. So one doesn't, the Mahabhaya comes when the destination is down to the lower planets. You go visit Yamaraj first, and you get taken to the court of Yamaraj by those fellows that look pretty scary. Yamadutas. This is Prabhupada's explanation. The greatest fear is meeting the Yamadutas. Oh no. So one is safe from that. That is to say, one will at least, minimally, at least, achieve a human form or higher from a little devotional service. Guaranteed, you won't go down. You won't have to meet the Yamadutas and go down. That's in response to this question, is it possible to lose the effect of akarma or devotional service? It's not possible, because Krishna gives his promise. So what happens if you perform akarma throughout your whole life? That's called yoga. Yoga is that which links one with God. Okay, sounds great. Let's get it together and serve God. So now comes, how did this bondage begin with? How did we get in jail anyways? Well, it's misuse of free will. It's rebellion towards Krishna. That's this fellow, that's this guy over here. You see that guy? Let's do this. Laser pointer. This guy. He's saying no to Krishna and saying yes to illusion. That's what precipitates coming to the material condition. We don't belong here. This is a diseased condition. We belong with Krishna, but we said no to Krishna. So here we are. Icha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani samoham sargayanti parantapa. At the translation, O sign of Bharata, O conqueror of foe, all living beings are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. Icha and dvesha, desire and hate. Icha and dvesha, desire and hate. They're dvandva mohena. They bring about this bewilderment, mohena, bewilderment of dualities. So here's a little diagram that shows the same thing. Up at the top, that's that same skinny fellow saying no to Krishna. See him up here? That guy? He's saying no to Krishna. What happens? He goes down here. That's the arrow is moving in this direction. Delusion about oneself. And when we're deluded about ourselves, then we're controlled by the illusory energy. You recognize this is the three modes of material nature, manipulating people that are entangled by the modes of nature. And then over here, this circle keeps going, dwelling in the life of dualities, of Icha, that's that guy on the left, the big smiling guy, and Dvesha, that's the other guy, unhappy. So we keep going on in this striving for happiness and avoiding unhappiness, and desire to become one with God when we're frustrated in that happiness and unhappiness position, wanting to become one with God. And all of them have this same thing in common. It's enmity or envy of he who is actually the Supreme. We have to break that cycle. The breaking of that cycle requires going beyond these three modes of material nature. Let's recite together 14.5. Sattvam rajas tamo niti guna prakriti sambhava nihi bandhanti madbaho dehe dehainam arpyaya. The three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, is what material nature consists of. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So even in goodness, there's shackles. I have a nephew that described, he's an evangelical Christian person. And he describes my older brother, who was his father, as he was bound by golden shackles. My older brother liked opulent life. He lived an opulent life. And my nephew said, Dad was chained with golden shackles. No, golden shackles actually means mode of goodness, but as you see, it's not just a chain, there's the dollar signs. Mode of passion and mode of ignorance, that's the ball and chain. So the modes bind us even when we think that we're free. We're not free. We're eternally bound by the modes of nature. So how do you get free from the modes of nature? Is karma something that affects everybody? See that little skinny guy? That's a spirit soul. And spirit soul can take different forms. It can take a human form. It can take a lower species. It can take a higher species. But when it's bound in that cycle, higher beings go down to become lower beings, or lowering beings go up to become human beings. And it just keeps going around and around. And that's on the side of material life. The side of spiritual life, through the path of yoga, one becomes free from that bondage. Yay! Let's watch that one again. Yay! Graphics to help explain the law of karma. And karma-free, where the soul is eternal, cognizant, blissful. And that's the atmosphere in which we live. And we associate with persons who are similarly situated. Here's a verse from the Bhagavatam, from the Uddhava Gita section of Bhagavatam. Manusham artadam anityam apiha dhiraha. The rare human form of life, which, although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. So let's go for it. Not only akarma, but consistent, not oscillating back and forth between devotional service and the other. So here's a little summary. Vikarma, that's breaking the laws of nature. Karma, living in harmony with the laws of nature but still bound. And akarma is prescribed God-centric activities when there's no karma. And you do that, and that's the right choice. That's devotional service. So here's the last slide. To see the path for akarma life through yoga, we need Bhagavad Gita, we need wisdom literature, we need good, wise people that understand how to see things the way that Krishna sees things, take that inside and live our lives accordingly. And then bad things no longer happen because it's only karma-free things that happen. And that's our little presentation about why bad things happen to good people. Okay, so you're all familiar with these topics, the subject of bad things and good people and all of that. So let's see if there's some discussion. Look like there's a lot of intelligent people in the room here. Intelligent and thoughtful and searching for the purpose of life and things like that. Yes, all the way in the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful explanation of karma. So you have mentioned in the slide deck at one point, karma is like the activities what we do to please the Lord. So Maharaj, like in the course of our spiritual practices, when we do some activities with a desire to please Lord, and then we keep on doing them over a period of time, sometimes it becomes mechanical. So even during that mechanically execution of those activities, are we getting benefited? Are we getting benefited?
Benefit, absolutely.
And
it's
how
not
to come
complete.
out of that
It's not complete, but it's benefited for sure. You want an explanation? Why is it a benefit even if we're doing mechanically? That's what you'd like to know.
Yes, Maharaj. And how to come out of that
That's another story.
Mechanical nature.
The how-to is sadhusanga. You know that one, right? It's got a little flashcard in my pocket. When people say how-to, I just, sadhusanga. Because sadhusanga means so many things. Just like knowing yourself means so many things. I just heard it this morning, because I was mentioning in the course of this visit, the interview in a TV show, a TV talk show. Swamiji, you came to America. You obviously came with a message to give to the people in America. Would you like to share with us what's that message that you came to America to give to the people on a TV talk show? It's like open door, right? And Prabhupada said, to know yourself. And the man was waiting for Prabhupada to say more. He didn't say more, so he just repeated, nodded his head, to know yourself. And Prabhupada looked at him and said, to know yourself. And that's a big thing, to know yourself, because it's not just I'm spirit soul. I mean, that's part of knowing yourself. But then So I'll come to your question, but it's sadhu sangha is the how-to, because it's very full. Sadhu sangha means so many things. Knowing yourself means so many things. It's very, it's concise, but it's comprehensive. It's kind of sutra-like, but within the sutra is everything. So how to go beyond the, mechanical is devotional. So how do you get devotional when you're mechanical? Most likely, people that become mechanical didn't start mechanical, but what subsided was not the behavior, which the behavior is continuing, the purpose behind the behavior slackened, weakened, subsided. So you ramp up the purpose behind the behavior. How do you ramp up the purpose behind the behavior? You remind yourself. And how do you remind yourself? Sadhu Sangha. By hearing messages. Again, just this morning I was hearing Prabhupada. It was in Hyderabad in 1972. Prabhupada was speaking. It was a big hall, you could hear because it was echoing kind of. Prabhupada was making reference to he liked to point to the white elephants, the American, European boys and girls. They didn't know any of this. This is your culture. They didn't know any of this. But just by hearing, and he made it very clear, by hearing you're not the body, you're spirit soul, you actually belong to Krishna, and by saying it again and again, and saying it again and again, and saying it again and again, they've now understood, and they're living their lives accordingly. Because it's knowledge that's innate within. So sadhu sangha, when the sadhu is a true sadhu, they may have to repeat messages again and again, but because they're sadhu, it cuts through the covering, and then the complacency or the mechanicalness is replaced by the bhakti-ness, or the purpose behind. The reason why we began the life of bhakti is because we wanted. We may have wanted one of four things, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, but supposing any one of those four things gets satisfied, then what? Complacency. Thanks a lot, Krishna, see you later. You took care of the thing that I wanted. And so now I don't have the reason to take shelter of you anymore because I got what I wanted. See you later. I'm checked out. So then one has to change, reevaluate why I'm doing these things that are now mechanical. It's good to get trained like that by an experienced devotee from the get-go. Now, an experienced devotee may fan the spark and somebody wants something, so do devotional service because you'll get the something that you want. Jnani, artarti, jigyasur, all those things. But then another sadhu, or a true sadhu, when the time is right, will help one remember there's a higher purpose. So sadhu sangha will help you remember the higher purpose of the things that you do in devotion. Not so long ago, I was visiting a home in one city, not here, and the honest person in an assembly like this said, I wasn't just exactly a confession, but it was an acknowledgement that when I do arti, I feel it's become mechanical. And I know that doesn't feel right. What should I do? Same question. Same answer. Reconsider, in ways that work for you, reconsider what's the purpose. It's not the how many circles and how you hold the bell when you ring the bell and all of that. I mean, those things they're there, that's okay. But what's the purpose? And even a person that doesn't know the details, but their purpose is alive, they're not mechanical. And then it becomes easy to adjust if someone says, adjust this way, pay for this reason, and just that way for that reason. So we can adjust, but if we lose the purpose, then it becomes mechanical. In fact, not only mechanical, but as we discussed on, I think it was Friday evening, it becomes an obstacle for bhakti. Shadbir bhakti or vinashati. When you don't do things that should be done, or when you do things without understanding the purpose behind the things. Vinashati. Bhakti becomes suppressed or covered. So give yourself a bhakti boost by associating with sadhus. Our hostess in the kitchen. Hare Krishna. Good to see you from around the corner.
Class, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Maharaj, at work, sometimes when the senior management and they're using bad language, because it's the culture mostly here. So we try to control ourselves, but sometimes in the mind, the negativity comes, Maharaj. So first of all, how to deal with that? And then in that case, are we also doing a karma, bad karma?
Okay, let me clarify what your question is. Are you in the management position and you have to use bad language, or you're under a manager who uses bad language?
So the manager uses bad language, Maharaj.
Okay. And how to keep your equilibrium when a manager is using bad language?
Yes, Maharaj.
That's the first part. There was a second part. Let's do one at a time. One of the best ways, one option is find another job, but if that's not so easily done, you can try to influence the manager that uses bad language by feeling, most important, that your position is you're Krishna's little emissary. You're in you're in any situation of life as an instrument of Krishna. So Krishna has a purpose for me being here. And that purpose of Krishna for me being here is to represent him nicely. So then, if you're in that consciousness, first of all, you'll be protected from the negative emotion that arises from a person using bad language, because you'll see through the eyes of Scripture, okay, here's Tamagun. And that was an interesting display of Tamagun. And this particular living entity has a lot of Tamagun in them, and that they probably had a lot of Tamagun association to get that Tamagun. And so you're just in this. First of all, you're an instrument of Krishna. Next, you're looking at things through the lens of Scripture, Jnana Chakshusha. And then you're thinking in the mood of service. How can I be of service to this person or the atmosphere here in the workplace? You may not have an answer, but having that question or that consciousness of wishing to be a better instrument where Krishna has placed you, you're protected. You're protected from the negative emotion. You're protected even from that sound vibration, because you're wishing to be in service. And if you're wishing to be in service, then devotional quality will be the quality that you carry. And even if you don't say anything or do anything, you're being an influencer in the workplace of a representative of Krishna in the workplace. That remain dhira, if you have this capacity, you can remain undisturbed, even when there's cause of disturbance. You know the meaning. You know the word, dhira, D-H-I-R-A, dhira. It means even when there's cause of disturbance, you remain undisturbed. So supposing you remain undisturbed. I mean, that's just supposing, because right now you're saying you're disturbed. But supposing you become qualified like that, because you're really absorbed in this purpose of wanting to be Krishna's representative in every situation that he puts you in, and there's this one. So I want to be Krishna's representative. So let me remain undisturbed. Let me smile on the inside, see through the lens of Scripture on the outside, and think, how can I be of service? And you may find all kinds of things will happen. Like, I know some people that made an arrangement that they got switched from this supervisor to that supervisor by a providential arrangement. They didn't even have to ask. Just providential arrangement, they got switched to a person that was of a different, mode of nature than that other one. Or you can impact gradually impact a person who is influenced by ignorance by your good quality of tolerance and simplicity and purity. Because how does something that's impure become pure? By contact with something pure. Now you may not have that potency, that spiritual potency to change someone that uses bad language, and from behind the bad language is anger, and behind the anger is they were hurt. So they got anger and they use bad language because it covers the hurt. It doesn't cover the hurt, it increases it. It deepens their darkness of ignorance. But that's how it's covering, they're expressing the pain, that hurt that's inside them for who knows what and for how many lifetimes they've been through it. And what bad so you'll be good association. It's a standard teaching. We discussed this the other day, but I'm doing it again. You know what the golden rule is, right? The golden rule. You've heard that? The golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. So you just be. And it's similar. It's not the same. Of a Gandhi saying, "Be that which you'd like the world to be." So you'd like the persons in the workplace to be like this, so be like this. And that's your service. That's one of your services in the workplace as a representative of Krishna, to show transcendence. You can be a parambulatory Bhagavad Gita in a workplace where a supervisor uses bad language. It may be, there's once you're in that space of being in the mood of service, you have more freedom. You're not chained by that hurt, that feeling. This man is bad and uses bad language, and he treats other people bad too, I'm sure. Not just says bad words. So I don't want to be in this company of a bad person that says bad things and treats people badly. So it may be that an option to consider is start looking around for another employment. Without, running and hiding or something, but because there may be another person is even worse in the next place, and who knows whatever. So, but you consider your options where there's freedom, because you're making choices as the instrument of Krishna in the world, where there's a lot of darkness and not a lot of light, and you're a little beacon of light in a place that's got a lot of darkness. So what to do? Is your question. And so continue to be an instrument of Krishna. Exercise your free will in that place of freedom. What's the best way to be of service to Krishna in this situation? Again, even if you don't have an answer to that question, by thinking in that way, you're protected. And Krishna will personally protect you, because you're being his instrument, you're being his representative. And then he'll give intelligence or create opportunities or change that person out or change you out into something else. But the doors start opening when you're in that mood. and make your best effort to stay in that mood. Well, I'm not so strong. Then you may, need to look for the back door and exit. But, make sure that it's an opportunity at least to become more spiritually strong. Because in principle, light is stronger than darkness. The second half of what you asked was?
Because in the mind, if
This
I'm...
car is louder than you.
will it incur karma on me, Maharaj, if I'm also negatively thinking in my head because of, hearing again, those words again, it impacts the mind sometimes and negative thoughts come. But I'm not expressing it in actions or words, but in the mind, like negative thoughts come for the person, like bad thoughts. Why he's to saying like this, he's
So
wrong.
how are you supposed to, where do you park your bad thoughts? That's your question. How do you handle and process those bad thoughts? Is that debilitating and weakening you? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking Maharaj, so will I also have bad karma because I'm thinking like
Oh,
that?
no. I mean, I'm saying that quickly. However, from thinking comes feeling, comes willing, comes acting. You're responsible for your actions, not for your bad thoughts. Karmically, you're not responsible for bad thoughts. You can check it at the bad thought level. But the tendency is that sequence will follow. Tendency is that sequence will follow. It'll come into some actions. You'll say something or do something, but you're not karmically responsible for bad thoughts. Thank God.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Maharaj, I do want to share that one good thing that has happened in the management, they started going to our Govinda restaurant in the Brooklyn Temple. Sometimes they go there, take prasadam, and also online look at our programs like Kirtan and all.
Okay, that's a good news. And then not only if you go to the restaurant, then you'll see Radha Govinda, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
I'm envious.
Thank you
I
so
don't know
much.
if I want to work at that workplace though either.
That's the attraction because it's close to the temple there. So
Okay.
I get opportunity to go to the temple sometimes.
Okay, that's good. And you get to go when there's darshan, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Oh, that's good.
During Rajbhog Aarti.
Okay, anyone else?
Thank you, Maharaj, so much.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, we talked about karma timeline and we mentioned that the causes are unknown, but the effect is in our hands.
No, that's not the effect is in our hand. The effect is something that you will have to deal with because even the cause is unknown. Here it comes. We're responsible for our free will choices. It can be mitigated in different ways by knowledge and detachment and by bhakti, but we're responsible for our past actions.
So we also talked about yesterday this saying from Viktor Frankl,
Yes, I
which
did.
mentioned that we can choose one's attitude at any given circumstance.
We can choose our attitude. That's a freedom. Yes.
So that's the freedom and free will we are talking about in terms of choices.
That's the freedom I'm talking about in terms of choices.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's, it's like her question. The attitude is also coming our way because of past involvement in the modes of nature, but we don't have to abide by those feelings. We can, we can move from those feelings. It may linger for some time, like the blades of a fan may continue spinning after you turn the electricity off, but it's going to slow down and stop. Just don't reinvest in that, that mode. So we can change even our feelings about things, right?
Maharaj, can you explain the cause and effect, the effect part in more detail?
Well, be a little more. Your question is too broad. I don't understand your question.
We spoke about the cause and effects. The causes are uncertain. We cannot go back in time and know when the cause.
Okay, cause in this case means the choices we made, and with the choices we made, our behaviors, actions we took. We may not know the action that I may not remember what I did 3 lifetimes ago having to do with something. But the effect may come in this life. And so while I don't know what the cause is, now someone may, by this process, that process, or the other process, get a clue, even directionally or even specifically, the cause of some misfortune that's come into my life today. It doesn't change the choice we made and the responsibility we have. It may be a little soothing to know, well, this is the specific cause. Well, even that this is the specific cause doesn't take away the effect. Not knowing it doesn't take away the effect. Knowing it doesn't take away the effect. There's a way to minimize and to eliminate. The bondage caused by karma, cause and effect. To become karma free. Nullify the past karma and continue in a non-karma generating lifestyle. That's a choice. That's a freedom. It's clear?
Yes. How can we dissolve those feelings, Maharaj, like negative emotions?
By making spiritual feelings. And spiritual, light is stronger than darkness. They just fade. It's like, a nice example is a firefly. You've seen fireflies?
Yeah.
Have you seen a firefly? Yes? Have you seen a firefly? Young man? You know what they are. So when you see fireflies at night, zoom, 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 zoom. How they don't collide, I don't know. They must have a radar system or something. But during the day, you don't see that light at all. Why? Because their sunlight is so much brighter. You don't even see the light that comes from the firefly. But when light goes out, when it's dark of night, you can see the firefly. So, turn the light up, and then those negative feelings become like nothing. And eventually they're completely eliminated. The whole material circumstance, the bondage of karma dissolves. Finished. It's not just notional. So supposing from your own experience, supposing you're feeling really strongly connected to Krishna, those feelings, and then supposing you're feeling weak and those feelings rise. It's keep the light on. Keep your Krishna connection strong. Not just for self-preservation, so I don't have to have those negative feelings anymore. It's for the higher purpose. Because what will happen? Back to our first question. Once I get relief from those negative emotions, I'm feeling let me relax. Complacency. Right? Oh, I don't like those negative feelings. That's unsteady bhakti. Anishtita bhakti. So nishtha is I have another purpose. I want to stay connected. And I'm making effort, continuous effort to stay connected. Someone else? Yes?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Guruji. So basically, one slide is stuck into my mind. One is Vikarma, karma, and that slide. So I would like to know how can we convert our karma to akarma? So
You convert it by adding the ingredient of bhakti. Okay, let's say one of these young boys is really good at mridanga playing. Supposing he had become a devotee, but he has a propensity, he likes percussion. So supposing he just didn't become a devotee, he just does percussion. I was in high school. That was the music, that was the instrument that I played in the band, the orchestra, percussion. And then I became a devotee. So then I just engaged that same propensity in Krishna service. That's how. You engage the propensity that's karmically driven in Krishna service. Provided there's a place for it, as long as it's not sinful. That's how you convert. Engage. It's called dovetail. You've heard that term before? Dovetail? I learned this from a devotee that's a carpenter. Dovetail means you join this piece of wood with that piece of wood. You've seen where wood pieces join, it's kind of like a wedge. It kind of goes out, and it's flat, and there's another piece that's connect. You see? It's called dovetail. So dovetail is a way of connecting this with that. So there's a material propensity to connect with a spiritual service. That's how. You're puzzled. You got that thing on your forehead that says, I'm not sure I understand this. Supposing somebody likes to do business. Supposing somebody likes to dance. Supposing somebody likes to do math. Supposing somebody likes science. Supposing somebody, whatever the thing is, that's karmic driven. And then you learn how to do that for Krishna.
okay.
And you learn how to do things for Krishna in association with those who know how to do things for Krishna. It's association of devotees, sadhu sangha. That's the how-to answer. Sadhu sangha.
Yeah.
Dovetail with Krishna. Service.
And what will happen? Like that slide say, yeah. So at what, at when, at that particular time, what will be I feeling to get that moksha? So what it basically means?
You're asking more than one question. Which one do you want? You want to know what it feels like? You want to know what it means?
Basically both.
Basically both. Well, it feels freedom. I described. When you're in the liberated place, you have lots of freedom. You're still making choices, but you have freedom that wasn't there before you got in that moksha place. You still have desires, you still have free will, you're still making choices, but you're aligning those choices with the Supreme. So what does it feel? Here's a Bhagavad Gita verse. I bet you know the Bhagavad Gita verse. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Nakangsati. Go ahead, I just want him to say it loud enough. Okay, well, we'll teach you the verse. Ready? I'll say, then you say. Not everybody, just him. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Nakangsati Nasochati Nakangsati Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. There's the answer to your question. From the stage of Brahmabhuta, there's three characteristics. What does it feel like? Prasanatma. Atma feels great happiness within.
Yep.
And when you're feeling great happiness within, na sochati, na kangsati, not hankering, lamenting. Something I don't have, I want. Something I lost, I'm lamenting. Finished. No more hankering, no more lamenting. That's relief. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu, seeing all living entities equally. We spent some time at the beginning. There's all kinds of differences. It's just the way it is. There's all kinds of differences, which is nice. But so how do you see sama when there's so many differences? You see the soul. Souls engaged in service to Krishna in different ways. Now, some have this covering, some have that covering. That's quite okay. The souls engaged in service to Krishna. Mad bhaktim labhate param. Then pure devotional service. So before that is devotional service. And then in that stage of liberation, pure devotional service. Whoops. Okay, we're done with this anyway. Then pure devotional service. So that's what it feels like. In a nutshell. And there's other feelings, but that's the essential ones. Brahmabhuta prasanatma. You can look up the verse later. What's the verse number?
1854.
1854. There we go. Anyone else? Okay, looks like we're done. Thank you very much, Prabhupada. Online. You going to read the online? Why don't you read it?
This is from Sri Padma Devi.
Why don't you take the microphone?
This is from Sri Padma Devi Dasi. Is it okay to stay away from devotees who are always fault finding and bringing out negative emotions?
Yeah, not stay. I mean, just be respectful. Be respectful. I'll say it 3 times. Be respectful, but be respectful from a distance, because inside there's some devotion to Krishna, and on the outside there's something that's detrimental to bhakti, and so I'm going to keep a respectful distance. That's it? Okay. Prabhupada ki jai.